So good evening, everyone. So we are here to talk about the Deep Creek Plan and where we are at to date. This is our first time in front of you regarding the small area plan, and we're really excited to talk about where we're headed. So the project team for this effort includes Charlie Jones, who will be our project manager on the planning side. Also, Anna Nagorniak will be assisting with this project. From the Kimley Horn side, we have Devin Simpson, project manager, and Abby LaQuesta, who's here this evening. So really quick, I do want to talk, for those in the chamber and those who are watching, I want to take a moment to share our effort and strategy to date as it is regarding small area planning. So as many of you do know, we have been hard at work updating our comprehensive plan that covers the entire city. However, the city of Chesapeake is huge and it's made up of many communities. And these small area plans allow us to dive deep into public outreach and the many details that make these communities unique unto themselves. So once adopted, these plans will be part of the comprehensive plan. And we think that these will be a great value add to the comprehensive plan to give us specific details related to those communities. So to set the table, we have done these in recent years for Indian River, the industrial waterfront. We're underway right now with Greenbrier, and now it's Deep Creek's turn. And without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to the project manager, and she can take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jimmy. Good evening, everyone. I am Devin Simpson, consultant project manager with Kimley Horn, so we'll dive right in. The Deep Creek area plan covers both the Deep Creek planning area and the Camelot planning areas. The map you see here is our core developed study area, but technically it does cover the entire Great Dismal Swamp, and that is an area that we're looking at for additional bike ped connections, but not necessarily looking at as the core study area. It is a 33 square mile area, so very large, a lot of different development, both retail and very heavy residential in the area. As Jimmy mentioned, this is a component of the comprehensive plan, but it's an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper, get a little more specific on understanding the community needs and identifying strategic solutions, ideas for implementation to really enhance quality of life, improve connectivity and access, and strengthen the economic vitality of the businesses that exist within this area. So we kicked off this plan this past July. Over the fall and summer timeframe, we spent a lot of time collecting data and engaging with the community, performing existing conditions analyses as well. So we've had a few touch points with the community that we'll talk about here in a moment. Right now, we're in this visioning phase where we've established guiding principles based on that input that we received this fall. And then we'll be moving into the planning and visioning phase. And we've got 2 more touch points with the community. The first will be this spring where we'll have a series of pop-up meetings, meeting the community at different community events to really publicize the plan. Then we'll move into actually documenting the plan and the vision and the strategy, and then we'll have a third opportunity to meet with the community again, probably late summer, early fall timeframe. So as I mentioned, we did a handful of engagement this past fall, so that included 3 community meetings in different geographic areas so we can capture residents from the different communities. We had 2 staff work sessions that included folks from various city departments to weigh in on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within the study area. And then we had 3 stakeholder workshops too that included representatives throughout the community of different organizations. Some were residents, some were business owners, and some were just represented their professional organizations. During this time, we had a community survey that we put out that garnered over 800 responses. So this was really valuable input. We learned of challenges in the study area as well as qualities of the study area and what folks really want to see improved. And you should have a handout with you today that summarizes the engagement that we've done to date and just some general themes and input that we've heard from folks, which we'll take a look at here. So what we've heard from folks, I would be remiss not to mention that traffic is the #1 concern that we hear from folks, and we know that is an issue in the study area, but we'd like to remind you that we are looking long-term. So the vision that we're setting as part of this plan assumes that the bridge construction is complete, and then on top of that, we are being strategic in the developments that we're looking at, in the solutions that we're looking at to make sure we're identifying opportunities to further reduce traffic congestion within the study area. Some general themes that we heard in terms of those challenges in addition to traffic are the lack of accessibility and sidewalks, so the lack of ability to get around with other modes in addition to vehicle, so whether it be on bike or on foot. And then the lack of retail and restaurant amenities. Folks really felt that they typically have to go outside the Deep Creek area, even outside the South Military Corridor, to get those daily destinations, whether it be medical services, retail, restaurants, those sort of things. As far as challenges, qualities, folks really love the parks and open space and the general feel of the Deep Creek area. They feel like it's family friendly, it's safe, and it's really important to them to preserve that community feel. But did mention that there is an opportunity to create a sense of identity because they do feel like there's some mismatch in the area and they would love to have a uniform sense of identity for the Deep Creek area. So taking all of this input, we've came up with 5 guiding principles. These will be used to help us guide us through the rest of the plan based on the community input that we've got to date. So these are preservation, accessibility, connectivity, community empowerment, and balanced responsible progress. So preservation, we'd be looking at protecting Deep Creek's historic nature. That could be a little bit different depending on the area. It could just be honoring the architectural style of the area. It could be adaptive reuse of certain buildings. So there's a lot of opportunities there, or just preserving open space. As far as accessibility, we want to make sure this area is accessible for all types of folks, whether that be through housing, amenities, or the infrastructure that's in place for them to mobilize and get around the study area. And then kind of similarly, connectivity. We want to make sure the connections are in place for people to mobilize through the study area and foster social connections, since we're really focused on enhancing overall quality of life for those folks that live and work in the Deep Creek area. As far as community empowerment goes, we want the community to have that unique sense of identity, to feel like they can come together and they have a voice and be part of their local organizations, and also have a voice in communicating with local government as well. And then lastly, balanced and responsible progress. So we want to ensure that any uses, any development that comes in this area is really complementary to the surrounding area and meets the needs that we heard that the residents would like to see. So as I mentioned, this area is largely developed today. It's really focused on enhancing quality of life. However, there are 4 opportunity areas that we've identified that have the potential to serve as sort of core neighborhood centers, and we can activate a little bit better to bring in some of those uses that the community is looking for and create a better quality of life. So starting with the George Washington corridor. So in this image here, we are just north of South Military Highway looking towards Portsmouth. On the left side of the screen would be the Camelot community. So this corridor today has a blend of retail and commercial uses, and we really just want to make sure those uses don't get outdated. We want to continue to activate this area. We want to improve pedestrian crossings. It's an area that can really serve as a location where the folks from the Camelot community can quickly get to, they can walk to, they can bike to, so getting them amenities and resources there that are useful to them on a daily basis. And then we've got, on the northern end of the screen, we've got a small piece along a branch of the Elizabeth River that we think there's an opportunity to activate that piece of land and create a community gathering space in this area as well. For the South Military Highway corridor, so in this image, we are looking northwest at the intersection of George Washington Highway and South Military Highway. This intersection today has a very large footprint, very large sweeping right turns. You've got a blend of uses along the South Military corridor. You can see there's a lot of residential in yellow. We've got some industrial, we've got some commercial, and then you've got some daily destinations, the Wawa, the Food Lion, the library, those sort of things on the south and west side. And so the key here is really connecting those. With all these residential spaces, it's still hard and not super safe for pedestrians to cross this area of George Washington or South Military to reach some of these destinations that they could potentially reach on foot or bike. So we want to look at enhancing some of that. And then channeling a mix of uses and development that is complementary to these residential areas, bringing in some retail potentially and some restaurants that the folks from the more southern Deep Creek area really desire and are within their immediate study area. I'll also mention that the South Military Highway Corridor study that was done years ago, we are reevaluating that as part of this plan. We're looking at the recommendations of that to figure out what should stay and what maybe needs to be reimagined as part of this plan. And one thing that we're certainly looking at is repurposing the feeder roads as well for some pedestrian and bicycle uses. So the Deep Creek Village area, so here we are looking northeast towards the village and the bridge and Deep Creek Lock Park. This is the area that we heard from folks, they really want it to feel like a true village. They want to drive and they want it to feel a little bit historic in the architectural style. They would love spaces for community gathering, and they would even love just some local retail restaurants, but certainly not anything from a chain standpoint. So we see opportunities here with the old school site and along George Washington to bring some of that in and leverage the waterfront access. As I mentioned before, we understand traffic is going to be a concern, so we are looking at that closely as we identify future opportunities here to see how we can mitigate that. There are a lot of residential areas in close proximity to here, so it's going to be important to also get the pedestrian infrastructure in place so those folks can walk to this village area as opposed to getting in a vehicle and driving to help mitigate some of that traffic. And then as far as White's Nursery goes, we'll want to make sure that anything that goes there is cohesive and complementary to the village area and the surrounding land uses today. Our last opportunity area is Culpeper Landing. So Culpeper Landing is largely developed today, but within the central area, there is some park space and there is some vacant land along Mercantile Street. And so we see some opportunities to, again, bring some small retail there, maybe some small uses, a convenience store, a daycare, something that can serve the immediate residents without them having to go outside of the neighborhood, and then also get some linear trails in there along the canal and potentially over the canal. We've been having some conversations with the Army Corps just to see what that would look like and what they would entertain there as well in terms of feasibility. So although this was our last opportunity area, I will mention we are looking at the study area at large for general recommendations, but these are the areas that we're going to be getting super specific in setting a vision, and you might see some more dramatic change than the rest of the study area. So as far as next steps, we are going to be taking all this input from the community. We're continuing to synthesize, everything that we're gathering from folks and conceptualizing the vision based on the guiding principles that we've set. As I mentioned, we'll have our second round of community engagement in the spring. That'll be a series of pop-ups. We are talking about going to the craft show, the baseball opening day, things of that sort to meet the community where they are, to make them really aware of this plan if they're not already. And then in the summer, we'll be working on the draft plan and implementation strategy before we meet the community again to present that, and then probably be back for starting the adoption process sometime in the fall timeframe. So with that, I will hand it over to Jimmy and open it up to any input you have, any questions, comments, or any input you would like to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your work. Very, very interesting. Any comments or questions from council members at this point? I know you're just beginning, got a long ways to go, so I'm sure we'll be talking more as time goes on. So, Dr. Ward.
I want to thank you for the presentation. Being a former Deep Creeker, yeah, I guess I'm in Bruin territory, but I was glad also to hear you're really, really looking at transportation, traffic, because it is a place where I travel almost daily, and there are just so many issues with traffic, especially at George Washington. And I was glad to see you focusing on that, because I don't think a day goes by where there's not an accident somewhere right in that area of the George Washington Military Highway Connect. And I try to figure it out, and I can't, but I'm glad you're working on it, whether it's in the morning, the rush hour, or the afternoon. And it really does cause havoc for people who live in Western Branch and do travel this way frequently. So I'm glad you're looking at it, including the traffic study, the traffic area, because it's really kind of nightmarish there. But good job. I like what's going on.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I happen to live in the Deep Creek area, so it needs a lot of TLC. And that restaurant issue is a problem, for one. But then, two things, along Military Highway, I think head towards the Cavalier Industrial Site or Park. What's being done with that land just before you get there? There's a big clearance there. So I don't know if you're thinking about doing anything there from a restaurant standpoint or apartment standpoint along that line. And then could you also explain the Deep Creek Village, because I'm still not sure where that's at and what it costs for more congestion.
Yeah, thank you. And I will mention with the military corridor, we showed a kind of snip there of the core intersection, which will kind of be central, but we see that having influence on the rest of the corridor. So further down there could potentially be some development for additional restaurants and that sort of thing. So the Deep Creek Village site, if you are driving south on George Washington, really this will kind of cover, if you're on the left side, the fire station, the Ruritan Club, Deep Creek Lock Park, and then you've got the Methodist Church there on the left side and the old school site on the right side before you approach the intersection with Mill Creek Parkway and the bridge. So that would kind of be the core of the village area. And then certainly we see that expanding across the bridge to the Food Lion area, to the residential area, the Hinton Ave area there. And again, like we said, probably trying to do something, it won't, be continuous necessarily, but making sure anything that goes at the White's Nursery area is kind of complementary of the village area. Does that help clarify? I'm sorry? Oh, so, yes. So we are not at that point yet. Right now, we're all just listening and taking in what folks want to see, and then as we start to synthesize the rest of this information, we'll start to set more specific bounds on what we anticipate to go there. I could say what we've heard from folks of what they are looking for. It's something that's a community space, whether that be open space or farmers market style or local retail, small scale kind of mom and pop restaurants, that sort of thing is what we've heard that folks would like there.
Ms. Rudder?
Thank you. Does this area corridor extend down towards Sunray, and if so, how far?
Yes, it does. So we are looking all the way to the Sunray area. It extends all the way out to the Bowers Hill interchange, pretty much to the city limit. We did have folks from Sunray in our stakeholder meeting as well, and the reason we don't really have graphics and things there is we pretty much heard from them we want to stay as is. We don't really want change. They do have some opinions and interests in understanding kind of what happens around them and adjacent to the Sunray community, but that's why you don't see any kind of graphics for that area. We expect it to largely stay the same.
Okay, because back when the former Deep Creek plan was done, and we never anticipated a change in environmental regulations and assumed that any kind of development in that corridor, particularly from Cavalier to Sunray, was not possible. However, in today's world, it really has developed into a very valuable business and commercial. It's not real, not a retail, but a really valuable piece of economic development properties or pieces of. So I hope that you all will look at that. There are great employment centers. There are now defense contractors out there. There's logistics distributors, and it really has evolved due to the changing in regulations. So I hope we won't, that doesn't go all the way to Sunray, and I think every one of us recognizes what they would like there and appreciates it and respects it as an agricultural area. But I hope you'll pay particular attention to improving the economic development tax base there and what we can do in some of those properties that we, are looking to maybe acquire or to market for substantial use.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and that's part of where our guiding principle of balanced, responsible progress came from, is understanding that even outside of these opportunity areas, particularly the military highway area, is really strategically positioned from a regional standpoint to serve some of those more employment uses and some of the more industrial uses. So those will not be forgotten as part of this plan.
I think we recognize it is a process, and as I said earlier, I think we look forward to continuing conversations and updates, so thank you. Mr. Manager?